Hi everyone, it's Lydia here. Welcome back to the Weird Years podcast, where we take apart the big meltdown-inducing questions that hit in your 30s. I am so excited to bring you this episode. It feels like the perfect time of year to be having this conversation. We're coming up towards the festivities of Christmas, of New Year's Eve. We're thinking about maybe our goals and our plans for 2026. And maybe this is something you've been thinking about, maybe it's something you haven't, but this is a conversation which is very much worth sticking around for. And if you're joining a little bit late, maybe you're catching up on episodes, don't worry at all, because this perspective is useful, honestly, at any time of the year. It just happens to be something that we talk about a lot at this time of the year. Today we're talking about sobriety, and that word might immediately make you go, oh no, this is not for me. But today's guests' perspectives, I think, will bring a very different conversation probably to any sobriety conversation you've had in your life or you've heard recently. Or maybe you are actually gearing up to do dry January. I've done it, and I talk about this in the episode and how it affected me. Maybe you're thinking about your relationship to alcohol, or maybe you're just thinking more about your health. Either way, this conversation is going to be so interesting to you. It's very reflective, and it's a mixture of kind of interesting points of view, theories around alcohol, but also personal experience. What I really love about this episode is that we do talk about sobriety and a kind of abstinence point of view, so not drinking at all, but we also talk about different ways to have a new relationship with alcohol that are not necessarily so black and white. So we talk about being hangover-free, and that's a terminology maybe you've come across. If you haven't, we're going to go into all of the detail, but I personally found that really interesting. It related most to my life, I think. And maybe it's a little bit more of a sustainable dynamic if you're someone who thinks that sobriety definitely isn't for them. We are joined today by the brilliant Emily. She runs hangover-free events brand Sober and Social. And they're really an events brand that put on all of these different things, very much focused around connection, around fun, around elevated experiences. But alcohol is not at the centre of them. It's really not a part of the event at all. Emily talks about her own relationship with alcohol and sobriety over the years, and we very much talk about this as a journey. And through this, we'll touch on a lot of the things that maybe feel like initial fears or challenges when you think about sobriety. We think about it through dating, we talk about it through friendships, through travel, through career, all of these parts of our lives that you might not think are immediately affected by alcohol, but actually when you take them apart, there's some really interesting dynamics that sit underneath those. Probably one of the first things that comes to mind in terms of fears and challenges when it comes to sobriety is confidence. We know that alcohol affects confidence in sometimes what feels like really positive ways. And what I love about this chat is that we talk about the kind of short-term win versus long-term gain. And actually we talk about the insights that Emily has found when she's actually stopped drinking and really what she's learned about herself in this, journey over multiple years. One thing that I promise you is that this episode is not preachy. We're not saying, there's a pressure to put down the Sauvignon Blanc tomorrow and go completely sober. In fact, I think what's really refreshing is all these different ways that Emily talks about that people could have a new relationship with alcohol if they chose to. It's really an exploration of that. It's not telling you what to do. We're not padding it full of health advice or anything like that. That's definitely not the approach. It's really an exploration and a questioning of what might change in your life if you re-looked at your relationship with alcohol, and what would change in your life if you did go hangover-free. Anyway, that is enough from me. Let's get into it. If life feels like a whirlwind of clarity and confusion, pull up a chair. Welcome to The Weird Years. Emily, welcome to The Weird Years.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm very excited to have you. It's taken us a long time to get in this studio.
It has.
So this chat better be worth it.
We've had a weird year to get to The Weird Years.
We really have. For anyone who doesn't know you, I would love you to do a little intro of who you are, what you do.
Fab. Okay, so hi, I'm Emily. I am founder of a hangover-free community, Sober and Social. We've been running for 7 years now, and we create alcohol-free events for brands, for businesses, and for anyone that is on a wellness, sober curious, healthy hedonism journey to come connect in premium spaces in London, to have great drinks, great connections, and wake up without a hangover, essentially. In a nutshell, is what I do.
I love so many terms in there that I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but I like it. Like sober curious, I feel like people are getting used to, right? It's the idea of not being complete abstinence from alcohol, but maybe like trialing it. Is that fair to say? Like trialing being a bit more sober.
Yeah, I think like questioning, having more like self-awareness, landing in a more curious space of like, what does this give me? What am I putting in my body? How do I feel? Maybe they might do, someone might do a stint of sobriety and then it will help reset them and they'll be more mindful. Maybe they'll, instead of having all alcohol drinks on an evening, maybe they'll switch, called zebra crossing, I think it is.
Oh.
Or zebra, something zebra.
Is that what we call it? Like doing a zebra crossing? Like
I'm gonna call it that. I don't.
Just call it
it's called zebra something, but I'm gonna call it like zebra crossing on a night out.
Which is like, I remember at uni, like that was the tactic. It was like you drink however many drinks, and then it was like, okay, every fifth. I mean, obviously this is a very unhealthy way of drinking, but it would be like every fifth drink should be a water.
I mean,
I always like, that's responsible.
I never did the water bit though. I had the intention of doing the water bit, but I just forgot about it.
That's fair.
But that's really good if you were able to do the water bit.
Yeah,
I'm very proud of you.
When you're at the point when your ratio is 1 in 5 and you're going over 5, like that's probably, you're probably in a tricky space anyway. But
yeah, exactly. I just wouldn't have remembered the water bit.
like forcing friends to down pints of water. Those were the days. And the other one you said was healthy hedonism.
Yeah.
I like that. Tell me what that stands.
Yeah, I feel like healthy hedonism to me is like you still really like going out partying, like you like the spontaneity of a good night out, good music, good drinks, but it's just more in like a healthy way. AK, I'm not, blacking out. I'm not drinking like 2 bottles of wine. I'm just more in a healthy space with my partying and with like my socializing. And I think for some people that will be completely alcohol free. And like I said, for some people it may be just having like a drink and then switching to alcohol free, or just being more mindful on their night out. And I think as well, healthy hedonism kind of plays in, and we'll talk about this later, but just more into kind of like the sauna culture, like socializing that is kind of becoming in our social fabric, kind of the soft clubbing era, which is really here, I believe, with kind of the coffee clubbing pop-ups, run clubs, like people are just being more healthy in their socializing. And I think that fits into like the healthy hedonism narrative. We still want an experience, we still want to enjoy ourselves, but we just want to do it without a hangover and just feeling in a more healthier space the next day.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with sobriety is that like obviously sobriety means lots of things across different cultures, and like the US I think pushed like a massive narrative of sobriety with this kind of like 12 steps program, and it was also often very like tied to religion, tied to addiction, tied to like very kind of heavy serious things where it felt like perhaps there wasn't room for like any joy in that. And then maybe people found themselves like pulling themselves out of those spaces, like they're not going to see live music anymore, or like they're not socializing with friends because the environment was so alcohol focused. It feels like a massive shift that's happening.
Yeah, I think like sobriety, or the word sober before, was inherently linked with addiction, or I've got a problem, or I don't think there was kind of like the lifestyle element, the wellness element linked to it as much. Whereas I think that's definitely making its way into that term. And I also think, we didn't have any other language around sobriety or being sober. It was kind of like we were drinking or we weren't drinking. We have a problem or we don't have a problem.
Right.
Whereas I just don't think that is like, is quite one-dimensional. I think inherently people's relationship with alcohol is quite complex, and I think depending on where they are in their life, or how they've been brought up around alcohol, maybe what you've experienced, how you feel about yourself, your friendship circles, your kind of families kind of drinking habits, all of these things can play a part as to where you are on kind of like your drinking journey, so to speak, and how healthy, or I don't even want to use the word healthy, but problematic or unproblematic it is. And then I think there's a space in between, which now we've got the language for, where, sober curious or I'm mindful drinking. My personal favourite that I now relate to is hangover-free. There are other ways of describing like where we are at versus I'm sober or I'm drinking.
Yeah.
And I think that's really healthy because people can then, describe their journey at different parts of their life in a way that is then relatable and understandable to people without the judgment side, which I think can feel quite heavy sometimes when you're going through big lifestyle changes of the shame and the judgment. Will I still fit in? How will I still, I don't know, go to a New Year's Eve party or go to Ibiza or get married or go on a date or all of these things? Actually, we now have like a language that is more like socially acceptable, that helps people understand where we are at with our own like relationship with alcohol or in our own kind of sober journey.
Yeah, I'd love to touch on because obviously when you set up Sober and Social, you went for, at the time, it was like sober and social, right? Like it feels quite clean cut. What was your kind of like journey to setting that up, and how has that relationship evolved for you personally?
Yeah, I think like Sober and Social, when it first started, like I knew that I needed to make big lifestyle changes. I was in a really difficult space with alcohol that I had. I started drinking when I was 12, just to give you context, which when I say that now feels so young.
Yeah.
And I had always worked in hospitality and events, luxury hospitality. And so therefore there was always, it was a huge drinking culture. It was what you did. It was never really questioned. And I honestly went into that industry because I loved people and because I loved drinking and I loved having a good time. And I thought, oh, great, I can make a career out of this, which seemed really exciting at the time. And, it was, and it still is for me, even though it shifted slightly with the drinking side. But for Sober and Social, I was working in a lifestyle brand at the time where I was working in a nightlife space, and it just became normalized, like that level of drinking. No one was really questioning it. And for me, it became problematic. I think it always really had been problematic, but not to a point where I was in such a cycle with it. And so the road to Sober and Social was knowing that I needed to make these huge lifestyle changes, but I didn't necessarily want to change my lifestyle at the same time.
Yeah.
Because I still really liked going out. I love meeting new people. I love going to new places and trying like the latest cocktail bar or going to, the latest restaurant that's open. Like I just really like going out and doing nice things. And alcohol was obviously a huge part of that. And it was a part of my job. So I was like, well, there must be other people that still want to do really nice things and socialize, have really delicious drinks, meet, fabulous people in fabulous places, without having to compromise their social life, essentially, because they're not drinking. So that was really why the idea was born, because I knew I needed to do this, but then I didn't know how. So I was like, I'm going to create something that's going to make this easier, and hopefully other people will want to be part of it and it will help other people as well.
That's really interesting, because I think there is this, as we were saying before about like kind of judgment and the association to addiction. There is often this idea that when you meet someone and they're like, oh, I don't drink, there's this kind of inherent thought of, I mean, even, what was that expression? It was like, don't trust a man who doesn't drink.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I think it might have come from James Dean. Like, it's definitely some sort of like really old school language, but it's like this idea that, well, there must be something wrong with that person, that they have to like, keep their demons inside. And if they drink, they're going to break out and turn into a completely different person. There's this kind of inherent judgment. So creating, I guess, a space where it's like, no, it's normalized, right? That it's not you're not the strange one in the group to be not drinking.
Yeah, and I think I also wanted to make it more like, like a premium experience for people. I wanted to glamorize the fact that like we weren't drinking. Like it still felt like, a bit taboo, especially, I set it up in 2018 and sober socializing just was not a thing. Like people thought, I remember our first Instagram post that I did, and I got loads of comments being like, why are you doing this? No one's going to want to drink this. Like, there were like all of these like
Really?
negative like comments on it, because I just don't think people could really understand why someone would want to set up socializing spaces where you were not going to drink. Like, it just was not in our social fabric at that time. Luckily, in 2025, it's definitely more in our social fabric. It's more palatable to say I don't drink. It's maybe, you know, has been seen as even trendy to say that you don't drink, right? But back then it was not that. And there was a lot of kind of pushback on why would I start this? Why was I doing this? But I just knew that, like, once you have experience, even if you're not going to go sober, even if you're maybe not at that time going to change your drinking habits, but to go out and experience a night out without drinking and like dance all night, meet new people, wake up fresh the next day, like that is addictive in itself.
Yeah.
Like, that's amazing to think, oh, I can go and do that. And I think so many people think that they can't. So actually, when they come to one of our events and they realize they can, I think that's a very empowering thing. And it's very like confident building, and seeds are sown. They may not, you know, flourish straight away, but 6 months, a year, 2 years, I still get messages now being like, thank you so much. Like, you know, I was able to, you know, try not drinking for 6 months, and it's really like reset me, and I'm able to have like a less problematic or land in a healthier space with my relationship with alcohol. And that just came from kind of going to a night out. So I think the ripple effect of someone trialing a night out, not drinking, or just like even if it's a month, even if it's a week, even if it's a year, it will always have a positive effect, I believe. So I don't think you can ever have a negative effect by not landing in this space. And so that's why I'm like very passionate about it.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. I think we talk a lot on the podcast about like putting space between things, like whether it's like your career, having some time off, or a relationship, or like when you put space between things and allow that reflection, so many changes can happen. I mean, I remember I went sober, like, well, I trialed being sober back in 2016. I think it must have been 2016, 2017 maybe. I did dry January, which was like back then. I think it was like a lot of people did it. I don't know if they still do anymore, but
I think it's still a thing.
Yeah, and it felt like it was happened in January, because it was like, well, don't worry, January's so boring and miserable anyway. You can take away this one joy and it'll be fine. And I ended up doing it for like maybe 6 or 9 months in the end. And it's so funny because even now, like sometimes friends I haven't seen for a while will be like, oh, yeah, but like you're sober, right? And I'm like, guys, I did it for like 6 months, literally nearly 10 years ago. And it's all people like remember. But it's so interesting because it was putting that space. And for me personally, I never went back to like the destructive habits of alcohol.
Exactly.
It was that.
Yeah.
It was like waking up, as you said, firstly, building confidence, like incredible. Like knowing you can go to a club and dance and talk to people without alcohol is like, it's like peeling back a layer of yourself that is just such amazing growth. And also time. Like I didn't realize until I did that 6 months, every weekend I was losing half a day, at least, if not a whole day, being hungover. Like that shift of now I very rarely drink to the point, like I have a hangover. It's probably been, I don't know, like maybe 1 a year, maybe 2 a year.
Very good. Great progress, that is.
Yeah, when it used to be like 3 a week. I think putting that like time and space between things is like, you don't know what you don't know until you've tried it, right?
Exactly. And I think that's where the curiosity part comes in, and why I do like people being more curious, because it's like, you really haven't got anything to lose. Like, you have the evidence of what your life is like drinking, but why not get curious and remove it and just see how you feel? If, you know, not drinking for a month is the worst thing that's ever happened to you, or it's like had a really negative effect on your life, I don't believe that will happen. Go back to drinking.
Yeah.
Like, but why not try it? Why not just give yourself that space, give yourself that like curiosity piece, and just think, actually, could my life be better? Could I sleep better? Could I always make my gym sessions that I promised myself? Could I be more productive at work? Could I have more deeper friendships? Would I maybe save some more money? would I maybe not waste my Sunday? Maybe I wouldn't order as many Domino's pizzas. I don't know, whatever. If people still order Domino's. But what are those things that maybe like it could improve? And I think that's so important. Like the ripple effect of not doing it, of not doing this one thing, can have huge positive implications for your life.
Do you think the biggest barrier to people trying it is like a confidence thing? Because alcohol has been given the label of like the social lubricant, even though it's also given the label of, she's a bad drunk, or like she says too much when she's drunk. Like there's these kind of weird dynamics of both positive and negative things when it comes to communication in alcohol.
Yeah.
I think it's the social side which is the biggest like barrier to people.
Yeah, I do. I really think that, and a lot of people, I think what you'll realise is when you are drinking in that cycle, a lot of the people that you surround yourself are also drinking in that cycle. So it feels really difficult to be the person that doesn't do that because everyone else is doing it. And that is inherently what I found, is that I was in a work environment, majority of my friendships, like 95% of them, were based around alcohol, if not 100%, to be honest. When I was, looking at changing my habits, that's quite hard to contend with. Yeah. And then it's kind of glamorized everywhere, not as much now, to be honest, but at the time it definitely was. And so, and you go home and you'll have a, family meal, there's wine. Everywhere you go, it's kind of signaled that this is normal. So then to not do that feels quite big, because if all of your friends are still going out on a Saturday night, it may feel a bit lonely that you're now not doing that. And how difficult is that when you are first doing it, that you're around lots of people that are still drinking? It feels like a really difficult barrier to entry. And then how do I have fun? Like, you've probably related alcohol to having fun, or to when you feel stressed, or you've had a long week, or you're going through grief, or whatever it might be, that we relate to our emotions, to our life, to fun, to work, to friendships, that we are going to drink, and all of those things are going to be helped by having a glass of wine or having a beer. And so I think it's hard to break out of that narrative, but also of that habit, and of something that is inherently deeply ingrained, like in a lot of areas of your life. It feels scary.
Yeah.
To remove that.
Definitely. I'd love to like come into some of the shifts that happen in the things I think about, which were really scary when I did my like sober time, was definitely like the friendship side, like communication. I think dating probably the scariest side of that. And then also like maybe even travel like was a thing that felt like, I guess it's this kind of language of taking the edge off sometimes with alcohol. Yeah. And it is that like just slight dampening of your, your nervous system and your fears. And ultimately what that says is that there's something underneath that which you're anxious about, right? That you don't feel comfortable in that situation. When it comes to example with friendships, what shifts have you seen in your own life or with your community? Like, how do you think those change when people decide to go sober curious or go sober?
I think there's always like a real fear in the friendship side of things, that that people aren't going to be able to like relate to their friends in the same way, and that if they tell them that they're gonna push them to still have a drink and be like, oh, just have one, like, I hear that a lot. Or because a lot of, and maybe not so much, I mean, this is not true for me now, but a lot of my friendships were, like I said, were built around alcohol. Yeah. So it's a bit scary thinking, okay, the one thing that we normally go and do and like connect on or have a sense of belonging with each other, I'm now going to remove that. And so what will we do? Like, will we still get on as well? Like, will they still want to hang out with me? Like, are they going to judge me? Are they going to maybe not respect my decision and not necessarily think that I'm serious about it? A lot of the time, and a lot of the time I would drink, I'd get so hungover. And I think we've all been in this position where we're like, oh, we're never drinking again. I can't tell you how many times that I said that. But then to be like, guys, look.
No, this time I'm not drinking.
Like, I'm actually not drinking for a really long period of time. And they're like, oh, it's fine. Like, next weekend you'll be back on it. And I'm like, no, like seriously, like I need your support. And I think this is a huge element actually of friendships is it's okay to say that you need someone's support, that I'm not going to be coming out with you on a Friday night to the pub for drinks. I need you to support me, and I'd really appreciate it if we could go for like a yoga class on Saturday morning together, or can we go for a lunch, or can we go for a walk and a coffee? Like, you kind of need to change the environments of which your friendships are flourishing in to you know, obviously not be in the same kind of drinking environment, but to also say that you need some support and this is what I'm going through, and I am planning on doing this for a month or 2 months or 3 months, or I don't know yet. Will you support me? And I think a lot of times we're so scared of like reaching out or asking for that type of help that we don't do it. And the thing is, because we have expectations, and I think this is the thing, right? People expect us to drink.
Yeah.
People have always known us that this is what we do together. And actually, it's a managing of expectations. If people do not think that that is what they're going to, they don't feel disappointed. That's don't feel like they are missing out. If you can manage that expectation of this is what I now do and this is where what I would like us to do together, then I think people are able to make that shift. But I use this as an example. When I was drinking and I would meet a friend for dinner and they were like, I'm not drinking, I'd feel disappointed. I would. I'd be like, oh, I thought we were going to like share a bottle of wine tonight and then we might go out after and like go out. Like, it felt like, oh, like we're not going to have the same night as I thought we were going to. And I felt, like disappointed or just a bit like let down that we weren't going to have that be like that connected in that way anymore, or have the spontaneity of a night out when we were drinking or whatever it might be giving us. So I think it's really key with the right friendships to be able to communicate effectively of where you're at and why, so people can meet you where you are now at versus where you used to be, which may be difficult to shift from.
And it can feel difficult. Like, I remember back in the day when I'd be like, you know, I'm reminded of people like I'm not drinking. So like I almost feel guilty of being like, I'm going to come for a while, but I can't guarantee I'm going to stay till like 3 or 4 a.m.
Exactly.
Like, I might, but I might not. Because that's the other weird thing. It's like when you're not drinking, time passes so differently. Like, I don't know if you found that. Like, I found that when I used to drink a lot, like the night would just whip by. So like it was kind of easier to be like there for the full evening or whatever. So there is, as you say, managing expectations is such a great way of like framing it and having those conversations. Do you think people are more able to be honest in friendships when they consume alcohol, or do you think that's actually a little bit of a lie we tell ourselves? This idea of like, you know, she'll have a few drinks, she'll open up, she'll tell us what's going on. What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's probably quite an individual thing, because I think inherently some people do find it really hard to be vulnerable and emotional, and alcohol for them could be an emotional lubricator, shall I say, for them to then open up. But overall, in general, I do not think alcohol makes us our most honest, best versions of ourselves. Like, you know, when someone's like, oh, the truth comes out when you drink.
Yes.
I don't think that. Like, we are our own truth. Like, I am my own truth now. If I had a bottle of wine, I'd be speaking absolute bollocks to you. I would not be speaking my truth, okay? And I might even be speaking my untruth, because I would maybe say things that I don't want to say or that I don't mean, that are more heightened, that are maybe not very nice, you know? Like, I think it brings out potentially parts of ourselves that we ordinarily would not have, or would have more under control or would be more emotionally regulated. Alcohol makes us unemotionally regulated. I don't necessarily see that as like a good thing. I think maybe some people would see it as a release and could definitely, if we're looking at it from the other side, could say, oh, I need that for a release, which again, there's no judgment on that either. But do I think that it like makes us be our most truthful versions? No, because essentially, we've gone offline when we're drinking. We're not online. We're not focused. We're not in our prefrontal cortex, which is what we need to make our decisions. We go offline, and when you're offline, you're not being your true authentic self. You're being a different version of yourself, which maybe you might not even recognize. And I think a lot of why I also wanted to go on this journey was because I didn't recognize that person who I was when I was drinking. I didn't necessarily like that person who I was when I was drinking. I like myself sober.
Yeah.
I like myself as someone that doesn't drink, that looks after herself, that is more aware of her thoughts, her feelings, her words, how she is making other people feel. I don't want to be a person that switches off from that, and alcohol makes me switch off from that part of myself.
I think that's such good framing and such an interesting way of thinking about it, because in this, like, there's a big shift in like the Gen Z, like the generation below us, who are drinking way less. And there's a big, I was looking at the data, and there's like a big shift of people who are drinking way less, but there are also a lot of sober people. But of those who drink, they often still binge drink. So it's not like that culture's completely gone.
No.
But you often hear the criticism from older people, I think, where they say like, Gen Z, like, they're too scared to have fun now. Like, they're worried someone will take a picture of them, or like, they're all over social media. Like, there's this kind of criticism as if they're scared to lose control. But I think that framing that you just said of like, actually, it's the same when you're in an argument and you become unregulated. Sometimes you say things and it's not the truest thing of how you feel. You say it in a way because you're feeling, attacked, or you're feeling overstimulated. So you say something like particularly nasty. And actually, that's not the truest version of yourself. It's your unregulated version.
Yeah.
I love that as framing. That's so, interesting to think about, because isn't our goal to try and be like regulated and solid in our beliefs and like think before we do things and how we impact people?
Exactly. And I think when you're, maybe not after one glass of wine, but when you're in that state, I think that is what it makes you, like away from your authentic self. I'm not my truest version when I'm drinking. I'm not my higher self when I'm drinking. I always want to be as close to those two truth versions of me as possible.
Yeah.
And alcohol doesn't allow me to do that.
So we talked about it in friendship. I'd love to talk about it with dating as well, because I think that is very interesting. Like, I once had a boyfriend that I literally don't think I hung out with him sober for like 6 months. This is so bad. Like, we'd always just get like absolutely hammered. And it was only like when I started to drink a little bit less, this was before I did like my full 6 months sober, but when I was just starting to drink a little bit less, and I was like, oh, I actually don't really like him. It literally, like, the alcohol had changed the dynamic in the relationship so much that I was like, he's not really actually my vibe, like, when we're sober at all. And I think, what are your thoughts on like going into dating sober? That must be a very different dynamic.
It really is. I think it's huge. And again, I think that's a barrier to entry as well for people not drinking, is dating and finding that connection. For me, I think dating sober like is an absolute must. I think if you want to find if you want to establish whether someone is right for you, depending on what you're looking for, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just going to use like the space of like, I'm looking, and I use this as a term for like my highest, healthiest, happiest relationship. That is what I'm aiming for in my relationship life, in my romantic life. I'm able to discover whether that person is going to fit into that space a lot quicker sober than I am if we are drinking. I also feel more confident in myself sober, ironically. I don't have, like, especially when it comes to dating, I'm not skipping over red flags.
Yeah.
I am not going into the shallow side of dating. And what I mean by that is when I was drinking, I think it would be very simple. Are you good looking? Are you prepared to drink with me? Like that was it, right? And we'd have good chemistry, or I'd think we'd have good chemistry, and I'd probably want to see you again. But the reality of that is, do we have the same values? Are you looking for the same things with me in life? Are you a kind person? Are you an honest person? Are you a loyal person? Do you know how to have fun? Do you know who you are? Do you know what your boundaries are? Are you able to communicate? Are you able to have good conflict resolution? Do you want children? Like, are you ambitious? All of these things, I can't find out about you if we are both pissed. And I can't see the truth in those areas that I really care about for a long-term relationship if we're both drinking.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's hard for me to decipher whether this person is a good fit for me. They may be a good fit in the moment because I'm finding you attractive and we have good chemistry and we're having a good time. But that isn't enough to tell me about your character. And what I care about now is, I would say, when I'm drinking, I'm caring about the chemistry. Oh, we didn't have good chemistry, I'm not seeing them again, you know? Oh, we didn't have that spark, I don't want to see them again. I was always chasing, just like you are the high of alcohol or the spontaneity of life or whatever it is, like that part of you that is like, oh, I want to feel heightened. I want, I want to feel higher, I want to escape. It's like all those things are connected to that part of you, which essentially I think we are kind of chasing when we're drinking and taking drugs, right? But now I'm like, what is your character? I care about your character. Yes, we do need to have some chemistry, but I'm chasing your character, I'm not chasing chemistry. And that is a huge fundamental shift for me in my dating life because I'm no longer drinking. I'm able to see situations clearer and make better decisions. And I'm not getting governed because of someone's A, the way they look, B, the way that they're making me feel, and C, because maybe we put something in our bodies and our brains that are making us think that we have this amazing connection. And the reality is we don't.
Yeah, it's like the difference between arousal and connection, I think, can be really lost. It's why trauma bonds are so powerful because there is a biological system, like chemical system, that when you're in a heightened state, you connect with other people to a degree, but they're not always. It's the same as I remember when you're younger and you go to a scary movie. You go to a scary movie on a date because it is that heightened arousal makes you like that person more. And it's like when you understand the kind of biochemical creation, it's kind of thinking, okay, well, when I'm not in those states where I'm not physiologically aroused, which 90% of your day you can't be drunk, right? So
Yes.
we're at work or we're sleeping, whatever. So how do you make sure you have that connection that sits underneath and looking for that because it's clouded when you're aroused by alcohol or drugs or whatever.
Yeah. And I also think on dates, when you're sober, it's people can't buy you. And what I mean by that is, you can't, I try to be really inquisitive and have good conversation. I hope that people think that is true and that I'm really present with people when I go on dates. But I think before people be like, oh, we'll just get a bottle of champagne, I'll take you to a nice restaurant and that'll be you done, you'll see me again, or maybe you'll see it with me, or maybe you'll kiss me and I've impressed you. But it's those things don't impress me. Someone holding good conversation, being present, like I said, being kind, being all of those things that I mentioned, those are the things that impress me. Whereas before, actually someone taking me to a really fancy restaurant, having a nice bottle of something, and us doing really cool things together may be something that I might have bought into a bit more. But it's there's no amount of money that you could throw at this date or bottle of wine that you could buy me or food that you could give me or whatever it might be that I'm going to be impressed by anymore. I have so shifted to someone being thoughtful, someone putting in effort, someone being mindful and someone being kind versus, oh, they took me to this amazing restaurant and we did this, had this incredible night out together, and I would maybe think, oh, they're a really good person, they're really nice because they did these things for me.
Yeah.
Whereas I just feel like when you're not drinking, like the actual truth of someone matters versus like what someone is trying to externally show you to impress you.
It's less transactional.
It's less transactional and less external, I think.
I wonder if our 30s do like offer quite a unique moment to reflect on this stuff, because I think connection becomes almost so much more important in your 30s. Like your friends, like by the time you get into your 30s, it's like these people hopefully are going to follow me like through the whole of our lives together, and like be really connected. And the same with a partner. Like dating in your 30s is challenging, and I think it's a massive narrative at the moment. Like people have very different expectations. There's a big obviously conversation around lots of women waiting longer to have children because they can't find the right partner. They don't find someone who brings to the table all those things you just talked about, of like really shared values and morals and communication. Do you think like your 30s is kind of like a perfect time, if you haven't done this already, to explore it?
Yes, because I think as well, like, I think there's like two sides to this. Like, I definitely met like amazing men in my 20s, and because I was drinking and because I was in such a like wild party girl era, I kind of didn't pay any attention to them because they weren't like as exciting enough for me,
Yeah.
But actually, had I been the version that I am now and I'd met these people, I'm sure one of them would have been my life partner or would have been, a long-term partner. But I kind of overrided those people because they weren't exciting enough for me. Whereas now in my 30s, like, I look back and I think actually that I had so many opportunities to meet amazing people and have amazing relationships. And I suppose now and I don't like to live in this narrative that it's harder or that there are less men out there or whatever. Like, I actually just try not to live in that space because I don't think it's healthy, and I don't believe it. Like, I know amazing men. I've dated amazing men, but I just have not ended up in a like relationship or found the person that I'm going, not that I've not ended up in a relationship. I obviously have ended up in relationships, but nothing long term enough that is going to be the person that I'm going to like marry and have my children with. I think it will happen, but you become more clearer on what you want.
Yeah.
And so you are able to say no quicker and like weed people out that are not going to be good for your long-term nervous system, as I like to say.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm not getting myself into as many kind of like, I suppose, situations where I'm entertaining the idea that this person could be my boyfriend because they don't have all of the things that I've said to you that are essentially non-negotiables for me. Someone's character is a non-negotiable. And so you do become, I think, just more aware quicker of someone. I'm not meeting as many people as I was before.
Right.
Purely I'm not going out as much. And the whole landscape of dating has changed with dating apps, with people coming up to you in real life situations, right? Like that just does not happen as much as it did. I'm also not in a nightclub until 3 a.m. where maybe I might meet someone and get their number and then meet up with them for a drink. Like that's just not happening for me. I'm in bed at 10 p.m. I'm also really focused on my career. I'm focused on my friendships. I've got other things that are more in focus than, going on loads of dates, quite frankly. But I think it is, I suppose the only way I can describe it is that I know a lot of amazing single women.
Yeah.
I don't know as many amazing single men.
Yeah. This is honestly what baffles me as well.
So, and whenever I speak to anyone, and that seems to be the general narrative. And I think it's okay to be in a space where you are more picky.
100%.
Like, I see some of my friends in relationships where all of the things that I just listed off to you were not in their thought processes when deciding who is this person going to be that I have a baby with or marry. And they're not happy. They're really not happy. And they are in, unhealthy relationships, essentially, because of the choices of going for chemistry and not character, because they met them when they were on a night out and they were drunk and they just dated them and they just kind of stayed with them, Equally, I know lots of my friends in incredible healthy relationships as well. So it does flip both sides. But I'm essentially really grateful that I'm not in a relationship right now, because I know when I meet someone, I'm in a really good place to have a really healthy, loving relationship that will be more sustainable than had I met someone in my 20s when I was not in a good place, where I didn't, and even, at the beginning of my sobriety journey, to be honest, like I was in a really loving relationship. And I think because I'd been so used to chaos in relationships, I didn't know how to hold space for that relationship. I did not know what a healthy relationship was. But through going, and being sober, I was able to invite that into my life. I now have a really healthy blueprint of what that should feel like, what that should be like, what that should look like. And I now know when something comes along, if that is healthy or not healthy. I don't think I'd be able to decipher that before. And because I'm able to decipher that, I'm able to get out of things a lot quicker. I'm not staying in things as long. But by that, there's obviously like a smaller pool of healthy, because you now know what unhealthy is.
Sure.
And a lot of more unhealthiness shows up really in people than healthy.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, I could do a whole podcast episode on this, but it is the missing part of the data for me when people are talking about how, whatever percentage used to get married in their 20s, and like how it's such a travesty that now women are having children later or choosing not to have children. Is like the missing part of the puzzle is exactly what you said of like, yes, people might be getting married less or later or changing that dynamic. But I truly believe, as you said, that the people who still choose to do it, it's a choice now, and that they will be happier and more secure. Like, how many of us grew up with parents who were married for 30 years, but they weren't happy? Like, actually, the ambition shouldn't be to tick box a partner or a baby or a career or anything in your life if it doesn't reach the end goal of like making you happy or comfortable or, aligning with your values.
Exactly. And I also just think that I've worked so hard on myself on many different areas of my life for it to be really healthy. I'm not going to compromise when it comes to my long-term relationship.
No.
And I have a lot to give to someone, and I am able to, be really like trustworthy and loyal and loving and kind and hold space for someone and emotionally regulate myself and all of these things. It's taken me a really long time to get there, to say, I believe I am a healthy romantic partner. I really do believe that now, and I can say that authentically to you. Even a few years ago, I probably couldn't have said that, but I can now. And that has been a lot of work and a lot of unraveling and a lot of like self-awareness and changing my habits and changing my patterns and, just working on my kind of like internal self to be able to say that to you now. But I also deserve someone that can mirror that to me. And I'm also really happy in my life. So unless someone's going to make me extra happy, I don't need someone coming in and making me sad.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need it just to like, for, I don't know, a hug on a Friday night. Like, totally. I don't need it. Like, I just don't need it. Like, it's just not, I don't need that intimacy for, a few hours, really, that makes me feel good. For then someone overall, as like, if I'm looking at my life being well, that someone comes in and like messes with my internal well-being. I want someone to elevate my internal well-being and like my external world to make it happier and like more joyful, and I don't want any drama Like if someone brings any of that to me, I don't need it, and I'm really good where I am, so it's gonna be a no from me. You've got amazing friendships.
Yeah.
Like female friendships are incredible. My male friendships are incredible.
Platonic love is underrated.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, it really is. That whole story of, like, you know, what you just talked about, it feels like there was a peeling back and like an awareness that came out with your relationship to yourself, with your relationship to dating, through, like, you know, going more sober. What other parts of your life have you, like, is there anywhere else that it's like, okay, when I stopped drinking, I actually realized this thing and this thing and this thing. What else did it kind of unveil to you?
Yeah, I think like definitely just like one last thing on the dating sense was like I needed that validation from another person for my own confidence, right? That if I'm dating someone or if I'm seeing someone or sleeping with someone or whatever it might be, that I am worthy, I am attractive, I am sexy, I am all of these things. But actually, I don't need another person now. I know that I am all of those things.
Yeah.
Sorry about your microphone. I know that I'm all of those things within myself.
Yeah.
Because I've gone sober and because I've like found out who I am and I've gone on a self-discovery journey to work on myself. I was looking for someone else to give me all of those things and to make me feel better, but I have made myself feel better, so therefore I don't need you to do that anymore. So that has been a really helpful piece to the puzzle of being able to make better decisions when it comes to my love life.
And confidence, like we talked about at the beginning, of going into a room and saying, I can actually go and talk to someone sober. Like, that's the very first step. And then, like, the end of the line, confidence, is like what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that element of the dating life. I think getting more landscape on like my brain and my body. I was diagnosed with endometriosis in 2024. I have suffered with a lot of pain throughout my cycle, throughout my life, which has been really difficult. And I think drinking masked that. I was able to drink through that, take loads of painkillers, drink, it's okay. And actually not drinking, I've been in a lot of pain a lot of my life due to my periods, due to my ovulation. And there was obviously something clearly going on. It was never picked up on. And it wasn't until I had a situation in 2023 where I had essentially passed out at Liverpool Street train station because I was in so much pain. I would not wish this pain on my worst enemy. It was just horrific, and the pain that I can go through sometimes is really horrific.
And this is from your endometriosis?
It's from endometriosis, yeah. And, you know, we had to call an ambulance. I was put in a wheelchair. And I was actually meant to be doing a speaking gig at Wilderness Festival. I was meant to be going, and I actually did pull myself out and do this gig. But,
oh my gosh.
Because again, that's what we do as women, right? It was like, don't worry, I'm going to power through. I've been used to doing that all my life. But I was feeling like, you know, I was not in like a 10 out of 10 pain by the time I got to do this talk. But the point is, you know, I had to delay going to the festival. I was in bed, like no one really cared. Like they called 999 and essentially it was like, has she gone unconscious? And they were like, no, but she can't move. And they're like, well, we can't do anything, you know? And so I had to be carried, like the staff at Liverpool Street train station, like literally carried me to an Uber. And the Uber driver literally carried me, helped me walk to my front door because I could not move. And I was in bed for a day, 2 days, just not being able to move. Like I had reached out for help. No one seemed to want to help me, like from a medical perspective. Like no one really understood what was going on for me, and it was a really difficult time. And it was scary because I'm like, how am I going to work? How am I going to have a relationship? How am I going to do all of these things when I keep coming up against like such pain in my life? And you know, that's what had really started the journey of getting my diagnosis. Even though I'd been in and out of the doctor's surgery since I was 12 years old, saying there's something not quite right. I'm not feeling okay. It was always, go on the pill, stronger painkillers, and crack on, basically. But it took this really SOS situation for, I think, someone to actually be like, okay, and I got a really good doctor, female doctor, and she was really adamant and advocated for me to go and, go to the hospital, get the scans, later on the surgery. And it's still, I think when you're living with essentially a chronic condition, it'll be something that you always have to manage. When you just, and there's a huge thing around disclosure, especially in the workplace. I've not been supported through disclosing my endometriosis, especially working in hospitality. I could do a whole podcast on this, but we won't go there. So it's been hard. It's been really hard to find myself living through this. And then, and there's been, and again, multiple changes that I've done, whether it's come to my diet, exercising, not taking on as much, just having to be really mindful and managing it. And I do feel like I'm getting to a much better space with it, even though it probably won't 100%. There's always going to be times where it's going to be really difficult. And I think the most difficult thing with living with this is that each month is so different. And that is the hardest thing to try and tell people, because I actually don't know really what each month is going to bring. And it is kind of like a game of Russian roulette. I don't know whether I'm going to be reasonable and it's just going to be a day at home with a hot water bottle, or am I going to pass out, or am I going to feel like I need to call an ambulance, or am I going to be throwing up? I don't know. And that's the hardest thing, living with something like that, to try and describe it to people. And the fact that it will come in and out, it'll be maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, you're in extreme pain. And then it kind of subsides. And then you can go back and, be on your laptop or do your emails or work. But then, an hour later, it's kind of you know what I mean? It's like a wave. That's the only way I can describe it. It will go in and out of the pain when you're in that kind
I never knew this about endometriosis.
In a phase.
Yeah.
And so that can be hard. And it will probably only last for 24, maybe 48 hours. It's not it's days and days, but it's when those moments come, you obviously need to be able to support yourself and look after yourself in between the waves of pain going in and out. But it can make, obviously, your life at times difficult to manage. So that's been a huge thing for me, because I don't think without removing alcohol from my life and coming off the pill, would I know that this was going on internally. And then the other thing is, my ADHD diagnosis that I was able to get this year. I got a dyspraxia diagnosis when I was 19, but I always felt that was not the full picture on what was going on for me. I felt so different. I had moments of feeling super low. I just know that my brain works differently to people, and sometimes I can feel super misunderstood. I think a part of that is a huge reason why I did drink. So again, removing that and thinking I need to go on this journey, because I know that there's something else going on here for me. And so to get my ADHD diagnosis was a huge thing for me this year, because it helped me make sense of myself more and helped me realize why I can be really impulsive, why I can over talk, or why I can get in a space where I want to do everything, but then be in a space where I want to do nothing. Why I can get in a space where I'm feeling really low and I just want to spend a day in bed, I don't want to do anything. And then why I want to go conquer the world and start 10 businesses, it was quite chaotic in a way in my head. But because of that diagnosis, I can now make sense of what's going on, and I can have more self-awareness around my actions and my behaviours, which has been really helpful for me. And I think coming back to dating and relationships, had I had these two diagnoses earlier on, I think I would have been able to better manage how I was showing up in certain relationships, that maybe would have helped my partner have a better understanding of me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think the interaction of, well, again, it's what we mentioned earlier about having space to like explore your health, but also seeing it from like the different aspects of your health, right? That like this is something you need space to think about your physical health, but also your mental health. And I think a lot of people downplay the effects, like the chemical effects that alcohol has on your brain and like the way that you process. And that if you are someone who's neurodivergent, I mean, I'm like so dyslexic, it's like painful sometimes. And I do think like one of the weird things that people often don't talk about with dyslexia is like overthinking is a massive thing, because we have such like a broad like view. The way we look at things is often very much in patterns. So you're looking at like really broad stuff all of the time. The way you absorb the world is like very broad, and you're always looking for these tiny patterns. And alcohol can be like this really nice way to like turn off that sort of existential way of thinking. But if you've never like taken that pause, you don't really know how the things interact. The same with people with depression, right? It's like sometimes people can be using alcohol as a crutch, and like or with ADHD, maybe they're using it again to kind of like quiet their brain in a sense. Then you don't really know what the impact of that divergence is until you take away some of the coping mechanisms.
Exactly. And I think that can be why people probably go back to drinking, and why not drinking can be inherently really difficult, because you have been turning those parts of yourself off or using it as a coping mechanism, and then you're just left with yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really hard, to be left with actually who you are, which you didn't even know before, because, you know, when you've been drinking since 12, or you've been using alcohol as a coping mechanism for why you don't fit in the world, or, you know, your body is in a lot of pain, so you're just drinking through it. And then you're left to cope with all of those things by yourself. Like, it can feel scary.
Yeah.
But I think it's that learning to trust yourself, like learning to listen to yourself, going on. And I don't even think it's a sobriety journey, and I don't really even relate to that word anymore, but it's a journey of self-discovery. Like, it's a self-discovery journey, essentially, of self. And that's the only way that I can describe it. And looking at yourself in a way that, by escaping who you are, just does not allow you to do.
Yeah. I'd love to kind of end on that part that you just said, that you don't so much relate to like even sobriety like as a label now.
Yeah.
Like with all of this journey that you've been down, it seems like it's opened your eyes to so many parts on health, and, you know, parts on your mental health and dating, and every kind of facet of your life has become, honestly, like sounds like more real, more authentic, just like more elevated. I think what term you used earlier, like your higher self, right?
Yeah.
What does that now look like as a relationship for yourself? Like, how do you think about your relationship to alcohol now? And how do you think about your relationship to self, to health and self as you've moved through these years?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, for me, like, identifying as someone that was sober in the beginning was really important to me. Like, I needed to identify as it because I needed to be sober. Like, I needed to not be having those really unhealthy behaviours in my life. And I think throughout this last 7 years, like, drinking is essentially a non-thing. Like, I'm very agnostic to it, in a sense that I don't drink now because I don't want to, whereas I was not drinking before because I needed to not drink. Like, it would have been really destructive in my life, whereas alcohol is not that in my life anymore. Like, I don't think about it in a sense that I view it as like me not drinking at this moment in time. You know, who's to say whether that will always be the case? I don't know. Me not drinking is like the best action or the best choice for all the other positive parts of my life and for being the person that I want to be every day. I don't think drinking in a problematic way or destructive way or being in that cycle is contributing to me being my best version. And so therefore it's just something that I don't do, because my overarching goal is to be my highest, healthiest, happiest self. And what are the elements that contribute to that? For me, it's exercise, it is eating well, it's spending time with really good friends, it's taking space, it's sleeping well, it's going to sound baths, it's going to saunas,
Yeah.
it's spending time with my family, it's being in nature, it's watching how I speak to myself internally, it's what I listen to, it's what I read, it's could even be like clean bed sheets, like, you know, all of these things. It's looking after my body, being aware of what's going on for me internally, it's focusing on my career. Like all of these things that I've told you, that's not necessarily sobriety, but it is all the parts that I can activate and focus on because I'm not drinking. So I feel like in some ways my journey has evolved so much because it has opened up so many of these different layers of myself and so many other different doors of like overall wholeness and well-being that I now focus on, and not drinking is a small part of that. Whereas in the beginning, not drinking was the whole part of that.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's almost just like a kind of a lever that allows you to do those other things now. Because like if you were drinking a lot and, you know, you were hungover or you were having destructive thought patterns or behaviors,
Yeah.
it would draw away from those.
Yeah.
So I think what you said at the beginning was really interesting, that you're like hangover free.
Yeah.
And that's like a term I think a lot of people will relate to. It's that idea of like, you know, just having like one, or maybe for some people it's two, but like even that shift from drinking to the point where you're hungover, where it impacts, you know, you're not going to the morning sauna or even the afternoon sauna because it might feel
Yeah.
fucking horrendous on a hangover, or you're not going to the class, or you miss lunch with your friends. Like even just that slight shift in relationship, I think for people listening to this who might be like, oh yeah, I like the idea of sober, but like I could never do that. Like even that kind of shift into like, what if you were just hangover free? Like what would that look like?
Exactly. And that's the term that I use now, and that I say, you know, I am hangover free. Like, and even with Sober and Social, like we're a hangover free community. You know, you're just on a journey essentially, and there doesn't need to necessarily be a label or any prescription for that journey. It's just what makes you feel good. And I think like the hangover free word allows us to be in a space where it's like less judgment in a hangover free space. Like you still have freedom to determine what your own relationship with alcohol looks like, but it's essentially, you're not in a destructive space, you're not waking up with a hangover, like you're not like living a life that doesn't serve you essentially. You're living a life that is space for freedom and curiosity and exploration, and there isn't a judgment with that. And I think it's more relatable because a lot of people don't like hangovers. They don't want to live a life where they're waking up feeling awful all the time. So it's like, okay, well, what does hangover free for me look like? And maybe that is not drinking at all. Maybe that is drinking less. Maybe it's going through a state where you're exploring like sobriety, but maybe you're not going to fully land there, but it will help you switch a relationship and help you reset and realign your life and your patterns and your behaviors. So I think for me, that word feels a lot more aligned with who I am now, versus what I needed to be kind of 7 years ago when I started on this journey.
It's really interesting. Okay, I'm going to wrap up with, we're going to do yes or mess, but first of all, I have one last question, which is that if there's one myth or societal expectation tied to this period of your life and you want to challenge it, what would it be?
Ooh. I think like how women are expected to operate in the world. And I know this is like really deep, but like how a society is like not set up for our bodies. And that really fucks me off, because without us, you wouldn't have humans.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't have the human race. Like, if we could not give birth, if we did not have periods, if we did not ovulate, there would not be a world. And so I do not understand why the world is not set up to help the very humans that give life. And our hormones and what we go through on a monthly basis is swept under the carpet. It is shamed. I think our bodies are still either shamed or sexualized. No one wants to talk about periods. No one wants to talk about what happens when we bleed every month. It's like there is still like so much taboo. Like, don't talk about that. You're meant to, we're meant to still go to work for the same hours as men. We are meant to, still give birth, still be high flying, still, be emotionally stable, because God forbid if women are unemotionally stable, even though we're fluctuating all the time. And like, it's inherently difficult to manage hormones as a woman and to fit into society, really. But we are so preened for that, to just get on with it, to not bring up these difficult conversations, to not be okay, that, we carry on. And I would like more spaces to talk about what is going on for us, for men to be more educated and to be okay with periods and ovulation. And that maybe one day I'm going to be like, I don't know, for example, if I kicked someone in the balls 10 times a day, would you still go to work and show up at your desk? I highly doubt it. You'd be at home and you'd be crying and you wouldn't come into the office. So don't expect me to, but oh no, it's okay for me. You take some painkillers, you show up and you crack on, because I'm not going to make space for your pain or for your needs as a woman. And that really fucks me off, because when I'm at work and when I'm going, I'm probably doing my job 10 times better than you are anyway. But, there might be a few days where I maybe not need to, where I need to not do that because of my body. And I need you to understand that. And we are more, I just feel like as humans becoming more emotionally intelligent, I think there is real value for women's emotions and intuition and insight and thought processes that are not put forward enough in society.
Honestly, like what you just said, like I'm like, put that on a fucking poster on my wall, because that is like the preaching that we all need. Because I mean, especially in this world where it's like, do not talk to me about falling birth rates when you don't have standardized maternity care. Do not talk to me about women choosing to not have children when there's more money going into research on Viagra than there is on endometriosis. Like, we just need to make it make sense. Like France just introduced, I think it was France, just introduced paid leave every month for challenges around your period, and I was like, yeah, how is that not? It's illness.
It's illness. It should be like in law.
100%.
Like, if you want me to function and you want me to come with all my amazing creativity and all of my ideas and all of my strategy and have impact in your business, which I can really do. I can make you make more money.
Yeah.
But on the offside of that, I need you to support my body and support my brain so I can work better and so I can function better to be the best version of myself.
It feels like the third part of like the rights coming into the workplace, in that before it was like physical health was valid and that was it. And now it's like, okay, there's parts of like mental health is now more valid, like mental health days and things at work. And it's almost like the third part is like, okay, now we need like specific like hormone, menstruation, like validity in that, and legislation coming into that, because it affects 50% of the population.
Yeah. And when you hear people, oh, we need to be back in the office 5 days a week, mainly it's coming from a man. Like, if you were having a period and ovulating, I tell you now, you wouldn't be saying that. You'd be like, no, I think we should all have flexi working. Yeah, because of course you need flexi working to look after your body and to like operate at your highest level. Some jobs are not feasible for flexi working. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I also totally get the value of being in an office and being with a team. But if there is a point where you can help support someone, be their best version and help them live a life where they are still really high flying and contributing, but they're also allowed to look after their body and their mental health at the same time, and it's feasible for them to work from home, why would you not let that person do that? I promise you now, if you let that person do that, they will come in on that 8-hour day they're meant to be working and probably work 12 because you've let them do that, because they feel seen, heard and acknowledged as a human. People will work harder for you if you can simply acknowledge and look after them. If you go the other way, they will think, well, why should I spend that extra hour? Why should I cover that person that is off sick? Why should I work that day on the weekend because I've got an extra project? They won't do it. But if you can like look after people, people will work harder for you anyway. It does not make sense that you don't let people be supported in who they are.
100%. Okay, we're going to
Sorry, that was really long, but
No, I loved it.
I'm passionate about it.
Honestly, like it's something I should do a whole podcast episode on, because like I fully believe that if men had the health, like just the fluctuations of women's bodies, like especially being like an 8-month pregnant woman, I'm like, if men gave birth or were pregnant, they would have 2 years off and they would live in like perfect gilded gold castles and everyone would run around and like rub their feet. Like
And get paid.
They'd get paid full pay.
They get paid full pay.
Yeah, the actual statutory maternity leave like pay from the government is less than minimum wage. It's like
outrageous.
It's it would be a completely different world. Like I'm so pro if they find a way for a man to experience like bearing a child. I'm like, please do, because it will change everything when you understand.
Yes, I would really like that, please.
Okay, we're going to go into our final part, yes or mess. These are 5 rapid fire questions and you have to answer with yes if you're like, good idea, I'm into it. Mess if you're like, no, that just isn't a vibe. So the first one is doing dry January.
Yes, 100%.
Seeing sobriety as an act of cultural rebellion.
Yeah.
We talked about this a little bit, but the idea that the truth comes out when people are drunk.
No. Mess.
Is anxiety a symptom that you need to stop drinking?
Yes. Can I go further on that?
Yeah.
Like, I do think it is. And I think the do I need to stop drinking is a really personal question. Because I think if you're feeling super anxious, I mean, alcohol will mostly probably make you feel quite anxious the day after because of the chemical imbalance in your brain, and you're essentially trying to get back to your equilibrium and your kind of, default chemical balance, right? When that's out of balance, there has to be a process in your body and your brain that usually manifests itself as anxiety, as headache, as a hangover, essentially, because you poisoned yourself.
Yeah.
So I think yes is the answer as an overall answer, because it's like it's a negative impact in your life. And I suppose if you want to feel well and feel good, then is there a question around how can I make that happen? And do I want to keep repeating the anxiety in my life? And if alcohol is causing that, maybe it is a good idea to look at that particular thing.
Yeah, look at the trigger.
Yes.
And the last one is just a statement, alcohol is overrated.
Yeah. It's way overrated. You don't need it.
Because it's also this thing of like, I think people think that if you don't drink or you dial down on drinking, that you can't have fun. And I think that's what's like interesting in everything you said. It's not like you're sitting at home being like, I have to drink my 10 pints of water and I'm having an IV on vitamins and blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, you might do some of those things, but it's not all consuming. Like you're still going out and having fun.
Honestly,
you don't live a boring life.
My best night this year, without doubt, was being in Ibiza, I was at Pikes, which is one of my favourite places ever. And I was like, you know, one of the last 5 people on the dance floor, and it was 6 a.m. I had the best time of my life, and it was so good. And I, you know, was just drinking alcohol-free beer and just dancing and listening to great music. And I was just like, I don't need anything else. Like, for me, like, that is living. Like, that is life. That is the best way. That is being hangover-free. That's healthy hedonism.
Yeah. I mean, I did it even like 2 weeks ago. My husband was playing Coco in Camden, and I was up till like 5 a.m. And I was like,
it's great.
Yeah. And then you wake up the next day, and I was like, one of these perks of not drinking for, 9+ months is that you are waking up hangover free. It's a dream.
Yeah. So it's like alcohol, like not drinking means you can have everything. Essentially. Drinking means that you have to compromise somewhere, I think. Whereas I feel like living alcohol-free, living hangover-free allows you to have it all. You're not compromising your night with your day.
That is a powerful soundbite. Snip that one up. It's going straight on social media. What a great way to end. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Loved it. We've gone everywhere. We've gone hormones. We've gone social justice. We've done
everything.
Everything, as it should be.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.